You're 8 years old, but you're the one making sure your younger siblings eat breakfast. You're 12, but you're checking homework, packing lunches, putting everyone to bed. You're 15, and your mom calls you my little helper, but you're not helping. You're parenting, and nobody calls it what it is. Nobody says the word that explains why you feel 40 when you're barely 25. That word is parentification. I'm talking about people who didn't just grow up with siblings. They raised them. People who became the third parent when they should have been kids themselves. And if that sounds familiar, stay with me, because this gets deeper than you probably realize. Parentification is a psychological term that describes what happens when a child is forced into a parental role, not occasionally helping out. We're talking about a child who becomes responsible for the physical or emotional well-being of family members on a regular basis. And here's what messes people up. It often gets praised. You're so mature for your age. I don't know what I'd do without you. You're such a good big sister. Society treats it like a compliment, but psychologists call it what it actually is, role reversal. And it rewires your brain in ways that don't go away just because you grow up. If someone ever told you you're so mature for your age and it felt more like a burden than a compliment, drop a comment. You're not alone. Dr. Gregory Jurkovich, who literally wrote the book on parentification, found that children in these roles develop what's called compulsive responsibility. Your nervous system gets trained to always be scanning for problems, always anticipating needs, always making sure everyone else is okay before you even think about yourself. Think about what that means developmentally. Childhood is supposed to be when you learn who you are, what you need, how to play, how to mess up without consequences. But if you're parenting your siblings at 10, you skip that entire phase. You go straight from being a kid to being responsible for other kids. And here's the part that'll mess with you. You probably got really good at it. You became hyper competent, incredibly reliable, mature beyond your years. People depended on you and you delivered. That felt good, right? Like you had value, like you mattered. Except your brain was building an identity around being needed, not around being a person with your own needs. And that pattern doesn't just stop when you turn 18. Let's talk about what this actually does to you long term, because the research here is pretty clear. A study published in the American Journal of Family Therapy found that adults who experienced parentification show significantly higher rates of anxiety, depression, and difficulty in relationships, not because they're broken, but because their entire developmental roadmap got rearranged. You learned that your worth comes from what you provide, not from who you are. You learned that love is conditional on how useful you can be. You learned that asking for help makes you a burden. And now you're an adult who can't sit still, can't relax, can't let other people take care of you without feeling guilty. Here's something wild. Parentified children often report feeling closer to their families than kids who aren't parentified. They feel proud of what they did. They don't regret helping. But they also carry this deep, unspoken resentment that they can't quite name because admitting it feels like betrayal. Psychologists call this ambivalent attachment. You love your family, you're loyal, but there's also this quiet anger about a childhood you didn't get to have. And because those two feelings contradict each other, you just don't deal with either one. You stay busy instead. If you've ever felt guilty for being resentful about your childhood, even though you know your family did their best, leave a comment. That contradiction is real and it's exhausting. And let's be honest about something nobody talks about. Parentified kids often become parentified adults. You're the friend everyone calls in a crisis, the coworker who takes on extra work without being asked, the partner who manages everything because if you don't, who will? It's not generosity, it's a trauma response. Your nervous system learned that safety comes from being indispensable. So you engineer situations where people need you, because if they need you, they won't leave. If they need you, you have value. But here's the psychological trap. You can't actually relax into relationships when your worth depends on being useful. You can't be vulnerable when vulnerability feels like losing your purpose. You can't rest when rest feels like abandonment. And the brutal part? Most people don't even realize they're doing this. They just wonder why they're always exhausted, why relationships feel like work, why they can't stop taking care of everyone else. Now, here's what makes parentification complicated. It doesn't always look traumatic. Your parents might have been loving. Sometimes it's just a circumstance, a sick parent, financial stress, single parent household, immigration. That makes it harder to process because you can't point to a villain, just a kid who stepped up and never learned how to step down. Research shows the long-term effects depend on whether it was acknowledged. If your family recognized what you sacrificed and released you from that role, minimal damage. But if it was just expected and continued into adulthood, that's when it becomes a problem. What's the hardest part for you? That you can't be mad at anyone? Or that you still feel responsible? Drop a comment. So what does healing look like? You can't unlive your childhood, but you can recognize the pattern. First, name it. Parentification. This happened to you. It wasn't fair. Second, learn that your worth isn't conditional. You don't have to earn love by being useful. People can care about you when you're not solving their problems. Third, practice receiving care instead of providing it. Let someone else handle things. Let yourself be taken care of, even if it feels uncomfortable. And here's what nobody tells you. Unlearning parentification means disappointing people. People won't like it when you set boundaries. That's not your problem. If you're setting boundaries and people call you selfish, comment below, you're not selfish. You're treating yourself like you matter. If you raised your siblings, if you were emotional support for your parents, if you became an adult before you stopped being a kid, you're not broken. You adapted. You survived. Recognizing this pattern means you're already halfway to breaking it. Parentification shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. If this hit home, please subscribe. And if you've experienced this, drop a comment. You're not alone.